Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about resumes. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, what should a programmer never put on his or her resume? Well, you should never put anything on your resume that you can't back up, or at the very least, sort of sell that you know. That's very dangerous. Let me explain that a little bit. So, I know that some very naive people out there might feel that it's fine to lie on your resume, and in some cases I will not lie, and I will say that yes, you can absolutely lie on your resume. But the thing that is very dangerous about putting too much stuff on your resume or your CV is that if your CV is really, really good, but you can't back that up, it's going to show. And this is something that quite a lot of people underestimate. So you've if you watched any of my videos around algorithms and the thoughts I have on that, you will know that the first thing I tell you when you try to when you ask me about how do I nail the Google interview, or how do I get better at data structures and algorithms so that I can get a job, is that it's great that you want to focus on this thing. It's great that you learn these sorts of things, but you have to understand that this is not what you're going to do when you're actually doing the work, and that is the thing that is valuable. The unfairness, if you will, of the recruitment process in IT is that in many cases you might have tests that act as gateways where you need to pass that test in order to get into the company. So you have to know both. But you can you are making a big mistake if you're overly focusing on the data structure and the algorithms, because the real work is the thing that you're going to be judged on. So a very short-sighted developer will think, all right, if I just pass the interview, then I'm golden. Well, no, because the thing is, you can still get fired on your second day, even if you make it through your first interview and you actually get into the company. They're If you can't cut it, they're gonna fire you, and they're gonna fire you quick, because you're not going to be able to produce anything, because it's a whole different ball game of passing a test and doing the actual work. I can promise you guys that doing the actual work is 100 times harder than the test itself. The test is hard, no discussion. It's a trivia problem usually, which is not that common, and it requires you to know quite a few things to pass it. But the work itself, that's the major leagues. That's the thing that everybody is asking you to build. And if you can't cut it, if you're only good with the algorithmic parts and you haven't focused on the right thing, as I said, you're still gonna get fired. And the same thing goes for your CV. If your CV tells a story of that you are an extremely talented developer, or you inflated too much, well, then think about it. Then you're going to go to this interview, and if you let's just assume now that you are extraordinarily good with your soft skills and your social skills, then you might be able to spin that, yeah, all of the things that you've said on the CV is true, and then you might get into the company. If you are extraordinarily lucky, you might get all the way through, and you might land yourself a job in a company that doesn't really know. And this is the big dirty secret for a lot of IT. There's quite a lot of companies, they say that they want this, that, and so forth, and all these modern tools and practices within the same person, but they don't even know how to evaluate whether or not this person is good or bad. A lot of companies do know it, but some companies they don't. So of course it's theoretically possible for you to lie on your resume or inflate it to a point where it's not really a good representation of reality anymore, and get into a job where they couldn't evaluate if you're good or bad either way. So it doesn't come back and bite you. But for most of us, it's going to create a a a warped sensation of the person that you're hiring. In other words, you will think that this person is going to be super, super good and super productive. And if you thought that buyer's remorse was only something that you suffered from when you bought something that wasn't up to your expectations, trust me when I say this, employers feel the same damn way. If they get an employee in who they thought that the interview was awesome, the CV looks awesome, everything looks awesome, and then they can't even do the first story, or they are always causing problems or bugs and so forth, they won't like that very much. And I can promise you that they're not going to put up with it if they see that, well, this is clearly a mismatch. If you want to, I can, for engineers, it's usually less of an issue because we're really lucky in a sense, because a lot of the stuff that we do is very hard for an external person who is not an engineer themselves to evaluate whether or not we're good at that thing or not. I've seen many companies where they can fire most of these quite a few developers and save that money, because these developers are simply not producing as much value as the norm or like the average within the company. That doesn't really matter because, as I said, the company is not going to just fire somebody because they're a little bit more unproductive. It's just that they cannot estimate accurately how productive they are. But in other areas, such as when you're dealing with managers or sales reps or so forth, where the work that this person is doing is a little bit more it's easier for you to digest or to comprehend and understand, they are going left and right. I've worked in companies where we have had an average higher fire rate of just a few months. In some cases it was less than a few weeks, where they just hire somebody because they thought they needed them, and then they like immediately fire that person because, oh yeah, you weren't up to expectations. And because they could, in those roles, they felt, the company felt that they could very accurately, or at the very least somewhat accurately, evaluate just how productive this person was. And as I was saying to you, if you have sold on your resume that you're the superstar whatever, and you can only talk the talk and you can't walk the walk, they're gonna get rid of you immediately. And trust me when I say this, it's not as fun to explain to future employers why you got fired like a few weeks or a few months into your employment. Because the thing is, the what's going to land on your CV, if you even put that thing on your CV, or if you have references and so forth, is something that is striking. It's going to be extremely close to incompetency, because that is what you're basically doing. What you're basically doing is that you're creating a situation where your resume says that you're really good, but the reality is that you're not that good. When what is the conclusion that people are going to draw? Not that, well, maybe they're going to draw the conclusion that you lied on your CV, which is in of itself a bad thing, because then you're a liar. But the more likely scenario is that they're going to draw the conclusion that you're incompetent, and that is not fun to have someone to say about you if your next job is asking for references. So what I want you to take away from this is that the thing that you should never put on your resume is anything that isn't at most 20% a lie. I'm taking this as an ass number, so take it for what it is. Do not try to inflate your resume too much. It is okay to be a little bit flexible with the truth, because the companies are flexible with the truth as well. Everybody's flexible with the truth. We try to make it the best truth that we can make it, but try to remember that the more you try to embellish your CV and the more you try to sound like you're a better developer than you are, the more you have to live up to when it's time to do the actual work. And if you can walk the walk, then it's up to you to decide if you want to do it or not. But don't put yourself in a situation where you're selling that you're a superstar mega developer, but you can only code at a junior level, because you're going to create buyer's remorse, hefty buyer's remorse, in the company who just hired you, and they're not going to be very happy about it. Have a great day.